Before you spend another penny, stop scrolling and listen carefully. Somewhere in America, a cashier just handed back a coin worth more than a luxury sports car. And nobody noticed. A tiny copper coin sitting in an old jar, buried inside a dusty drawer, or hiding between ordinary change could secretly be a hidden treasure collectors would fight to own. These are not normal coins. These are silent fortunes disguised as everyday pennies, and most people spend them without ever checking the date, the mint mark, or the tiny details that change everything. Right now, someone watching this video could already own one of these coins without realizing it. So check your pocket right now, because the coins in today's video have shocked auction houses, stunned professional collectors, and turned ordinary people into unexpected treasure hunters overnight. Nobody talks about these coins because the truth sounds unbelievable. Some of these pennies were created during chaotic years inside U.S. mint facilities where mistakes slipped through unnoticed. Others survived decades hidden in circulation while millions disappeared forever. That is exactly why collectors are obsessed with finding them today. And here's the frightening part. Many of these rare pennies still look ordinary to untrained eyes. One wrong purchase at a grocery store, one quick gas station transaction, and a fortune disappears forever. Do not spend this coin if you recognize any of the details we reveal in this video, because every single penny on today's list becomes rarer, harder to find, and dramatically more valuable than the last. Stay with me, because what happens next is shocking, and the final coin will shock collectors. Coin number 1. The strangest part about this coin is that thousands of people have probably touched it without realizing they were holding a silent fortune. Imagine standing inside a crowded convenience store late at night while a cashier slides a few pennies across the counter. Most people would never look twice at a worn 1958 wheat penny without a mint mark. They would toss it into a cup holder, leave it on a kitchen counter, or spend it the next morning on coffee. But one collector remembers freezing the moment he noticed unusual brown spotting glowing across the coin under soft light. At first glance, it looked damaged, almost forgotten by time. But what he was actually holding was one of the most hunted Lincoln wheat pennies in the collector world. That single coin would later send shockwaves through an auction room after experts confirmed its authenticity and condition. This changes everything because most people believe valuable coins must look shiny and perfect. Yet some of the most desired hidden treasures are coins that survived decades exactly as they were found. Pay attention to this detail because collectors are fighting for original surfaces, and the moment this penny is cleaned or polished, much of its magic disappears forever. Do not spend this coin if you ever see a 1958 wheat penny with no mint mark and naturally aged brown surfaces, because you could accidentally lose a fortune hiding in plain sight. Back in 1958, America was changing fast. Cars with giant chrome bumpers filled highways, jukeboxes echoed through diners, and the United States Mint was producing massive numbers of pennies for a booming economy. Most people assumed these coins would always remain common, which is exactly why so many vanished through circulation, damage, corrosion, and careless handling over the decades. The Philadelphia Mint struck 1958 wheat pennies without placing a mint mark beneath the date, making them instantly recognizable to trained collectors today. But here is where the mystery deepens. While millions were originally produced, only a tiny number survived with the specific characteristics collectors obsess over today: strong wheat line details, balanced wear, untouched surfaces, and those unusual natural brown spots that reveal decades of authentic aging instead of artificial cleaning. Most people miss this because they assume discolorations ruins value, but experienced numismatists often see original toning and natural spotting as proof the coin has not been altered. Stay with me because this tiny detail can separate an ordinary penny from a six-figure treasure. The Lincoln portrait on the obverse carries the familiar inscriptions, "In God We Trust," above Abraham Lincoln's head, "Liberty" on the left side, and the date 1958 on the right. On the reverse, the iconic wheat ears stretch upward beside the words "1 cent" and "United States of America," with "E pluribus unum" arching above. That design became one of the most beloved images in American coin history because it represented simplicity, survival, and everyday American life. Yet hidden inside that ordinary appearance is a coin collectors now desperately search for at estate sales, flea markets, coin jars, and forgotten bank rolls. What makes this penny even more fascinating is its physical composition. The 1958 wheat penny was struck primarily from 95% copper, with a small percentage of tin and zinc mixed into the alloy. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, and carries a smooth plain edge that feels deceptively ordinary between the fingers. Its thickness sits around 1.52 millimeters, small enough to disappear inside loose pocket change without anyone noticing. But under magnification, serious collectors inspect every microscopic detail. They study the sharpness of Lincoln's jawline, the spacing of the letters, the depth of the wheat stalks, and the condition of the fields surrounding the design. What happens next is shocking, because even slight differences in preservation can send the value skyrocketing. A heavily cleaned example might sell for almost nothing compared to a naturally preserved coin with honest circulation wear and original surfaces. That is why brown spots on certain examples are not automatically bad. In many cases, they act like fingerprints from history, evidence that the coin aged naturally instead of being chemically brightened by someone trying to force artificial beauty onto it. Collectors today are becoming increasingly obsessed with originality, and this shift in demand has pushed untouched wheat pennies into astonishing price territory. Do not clean this coin under any circumstances. Even gentle wiping can leave microscopic scratches that professional grading companies immediately detect. One retired bank employee discovered this reality in the most unbelievable way imaginable. During a routine coin roll search, he noticed a 1958 wheat penny mixed among ordinary modern cents. The coin looked darker than the others, covered with subtle brown spotting and years of circulation wear. Most workers would have ignored it, but something about the surfaces felt different. He placed it aside and later showed it to a local coin specialist who nearly dropped it under the inspection lamp. The dealer explained that while billions of pennies circulate unnoticed, truly attractive original wheat pennies from the late 1950s are becoming increasingly difficult to locate because so many were cleaned, damaged, or melted over time. That single moment turned a forgotten penny into a major collector conversation piece. Word spread quietly through numismatic circles, and soon experienced buyers were asking whether the coin might qualify for professional grading. This is where hidden wealth becomes real. Once authenticated and encapsulated by a respected grading service, the penny entered an elite market where rarity, originality, and survival rates determine astonishing prices. The owner reportedly could not believe that a coin worth 1 cent face value might eventually compete with luxury vehicles in market value. Yet collectors understood something casual observers did not. Truly desirable wheat pennies are disappearing faster every year. Inside auction rooms, the atmosphere surrounding coins like this becomes almost cinematic. Imagine a quiet hall filled with experienced collectors staring intensely at a projection screen while gloved handlers rotate a single penny beneath bright lights. Nobody speaks loudly. Every bidder watches the surfaces carefully, studying the texture of the brown toning and the preservation of the wheat lines. The auctioneer begins calmly, But tension grows immediately as paddles start rising across the room. The numbers climb rapidly. $10,000 becomes 20,000. 20 becomes 50. People sitting in the audience exchange stunned looks because the price continues climbing for a tiny copper coin many Americans would ignore in daily life. This coin has crossed six figures. It has sold for more than luxury vacations, more than some homes in small towns, and more than vehicles most people spend years saving to purchase. Then comes the final hammer price that shocks everyone watching: $172,500. A single penny. That moment transforms the coin from ordinary currency into a legendary hidden treasure. Stay with me, because the psychology behind this market is even more incredible than the value itself. Collectors are not simply buying metal. They are buying survival, history, and scarcity. Every year, fewer untouched wheat pennies remain available because many were destroyed by moisture, harsh cleaning, environmental damage, or simple neglect. Others disappeared permanently inside old landfills, melted scrap piles, or forgotten collections nobody preserved correctly. This shrinking supply creates intense competition whenever a naturally preserved example appears on the market. Serious collectors inspect the color carefully because original brown surfaces often indicate authenticity and age consistency. Artificially altered coins may appear unnaturally bright or chemically stripped, immediately reducing desirability. That is why professional grading has become so important. Authentication companies examine the coin under magnification, verify originality, evaluate wear patterns, and assign official condition grades that dramatically influence value. Most people miss this detail entirely, but a single grade difference can mean thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars in market value. That is why experienced numismatists never rush to sell rare finds. They study the market patiently, monitor collector demand, and wait for ideal auction conditions before releasing exceptional pieces into public sales. Another reason the 1958 wheat penny continues gaining attention is emotional nostalgia. Millions of Americans grew up seeing wheat pennies in circulation before the design disappeared forever in 1958, making this the final year of the iconic wheat reverse. That alone gives the coin enormous historical importance. It represents the closing chapter of an era in American coinage history. Collectors understand that once a beloved design ends, surviving examples often become increasingly valuable over time because nostalgia fuels demand across generations. Grandparents remember carrying these pennies in pockets decades ago, while younger collectors hunt them as symbols of lost American history. This emotional connection creates powerful long-term demand that keeps prices strong even during changing markets. What happens next is shocking because many ordinary people still unknowingly spend wheat pennies every day without checking dates or mint marks. Somewhere right now, a valuable coin may be sitting inside a gas station cash drawer, buried in a child's piggy bank, or hidden inside an old coffee can filled with forgotten change. The coin's brown spotting also tells a deeper story about chemistry and survival. Copper naturally reacts with oxygen and environmental conditions over decades, producing colors ranging from deep chocolate brown to reddish orange tones. These patterns develop slowly and uniquely, almost like nature painting over history itself. Skilled collectors learn to distinguish natural aging from artificial alteration because authentic toning creates texture and depth impossible to fake convincingly. That is why originality matters so much. A naturally aged 1958 wheat penny with balanced surfaces can attract fierce bidding wars even in circulated condition. But once cleaned, dipped, or polished, much of that collector excitement disappears instantly. Do not attempt to scrub this coin with cloths, chemicals, toothpaste, or cleaning solutions. Even tiny hairline scratches can permanently damage its value. If you believe you have a rare wheat penny, handle it only by the edges and place it inside a protective holder immediately. This simple decision could preserve thousands of dollars in future value. One flea market vendor reportedly sold a jar of old pennies for almost nothing before realizing later that one coin inside may have been a rare 1958 wheat penny worth a fortune. Stories like this fuel the obsession surrounding hidden treasure coins because they remind viewers that valuable discoveries are still happening today. Not in museums, not only in elite collections, in ordinary places, kitchen drawers, garage sales, estate boxes, forgotten cigar tins. That possibility keeps millions of people checking pennies under lamps late at night hoping to uncover something extraordinary. And the truth is, every major collector knows the next great discovery could appear at any moment. That is why demand for rare wheat pennies remains powerful across the market. Investors see them as portable history. Collectors see them as surviving artifacts from another America. Ordinary people see them as proof that hidden wealth can still exist in everyday life. So, before you spend another penny, remember this story carefully. The 1958 wheat penny without a mint mark is more than loose change. It is the final chapter of one of America's most iconic coin designs, struck in copper-rich metal, measuring only 19 millimeters across, weighing 3.11 grams, and hiding massive value behind an ordinary appearance. Its brown surfaces, untouched history, and shrinking survival numbers have transformed certain examples into six-figure treasures collectors desperately compete to own. The market value of remarkable specimens has reached an astonishing $172,500, and experts believe demand may continue rising as original coins become harder to locate. Check every wheat penny carefully. Study the date. Inspect the surfaces. Protect the original color. Never clean the coin. And never rush to sell before obtaining professional grading and authentication. Because somewhere out there, another hidden fortune may already be waiting inside somebody's pocket change, completely unnoticed by the world. Coin number 2. A man walked into a flea market carrying nothing more than a rusty coffee tin filled with old coins his grandfather had left behind in a garage for decades. Most shoppers ignored him completely. To everyone else, it looked like ordinary pocket change covered in dust and age. But one collector standing near the corner table suddenly noticed a single wheat penny sliding across the surface beneath the sunlight. The date read 1957, and beneath it sat a tiny D mint mark from the Denver Mint. At first glance, the coin looked harmless, even common, with honest wear from years of circulation. But the collector's expression changed instantly the moment he tilted the coin under the light and noticed the original surfaces still glowing beneath natural brown toning. The room suddenly felt different. What seemed like a forgotten penny hidden inside a cheap tin was actually the beginning of a silent bidding war that would later stun experienced numismatists across the country. Most people miss this because they assume rare coins must look flawless and untouched. But many legendary wheat pennies survived exactly like this one, quietly traveling through gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, and pockets for generations before someone finally recognized the hidden treasure. Do not spend this coin if you ever see a 1957 wheat penny with a D mint mark, because collectors are fighting for examples with authentic surfaces and surviving detail, and the value attached to the right coin is almost impossible for ordinary people to believe. The year 1957 arrived during one of the busiest periods in American economic growth. Factories were booming, families were expanding into suburban neighborhoods, and the United States Mint was producing mountains of coinage to keep up with demand. At the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies rolled off enormous presses every day, each carrying the tiny D Mint mark beneath the date that now captures collector attention around the world. Yet, what makes this coin so fascinating is not simply how many were made, but how few survived with the exact characteristics serious collectors desperately want today. Decades of circulation destroyed countless examples through scratches, cleaning, corrosion, and environmental damage. Children spent them on candy. Adults tossed them into jars. Banks recycled them endlessly until most attractive examples disappeared forever. This changes everything because surviving fine-condition specimens with original surfaces have become increasingly difficult to locate. The Lincoln portrait on the front remains one of the most recognizable designs in American history, with "In God We Trust" stretching above his head, Liberty resting beside the profile, and the date 1957 accompanied by the Denver Mint mark. Flip the coin over and the famous wheat ears frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum curves proudly across the top. That reverse design symbolized American strength and agricultural prosperity for nearly 50 years before disappearing forever after 1958, making late-date wheat pennies emotionally powerful for collectors today. What happens next is shocking because beneath that simple design sits a coin engineered from materials now tied to another era entirely. The 1957 wheat penny was struck using an alloy of 95% copper combined with tin and zinc, giving it the warm appearance collectors instantly recognize. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, carries a thickness around 1.52 millimeters, and features a completely plain edge that hides its potential fortune-like value behind an ordinary feel. Most people would never suspect something this small could compete with luxury investments at auction, but experienced collectors know the tiniest details can transform an average penny into a six-figure discovery. They inspect the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the wheat stalks, the texture of the fields, and especially the natural toning that proves the coin has not been ruined by improper cleaning. Pay attention to this detail because original surfaces are everything in the rare coin world. Many owners unknowingly destroy value by scrubbing old pennies with chemicals or polishing cloths, believing shinier means better. In reality, cleaning strips away history, leaving behind microscopic scratches and unnatural brightness that grading experts detect immediately. A naturally aged 1957 wheat penny with balanced wear and untouched surfaces often excites collectors far more than a harshly cleaned example with brighter color. One retired schoolteacher discovered this truth in the most unbelievable way imaginable. While sorting through an old piggy bank stored in her attic, she nearly tossed a worn 1957 wheat penny into a donation jar because it looked darker than the modern cents beside it. But something about the texture felt unusual. The coin carried soft brown toning with subtle red highlights near the lettering, and despite years of circulation, important design details remained visible. Curious, she brought the penny to a local coin show where several dealers immediately gathered around the table. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Experienced collectors understood that naturally preserved wheat pennies from the 1950s are becoming increasingly scarce because most surviving examples have been cleaned, damaged, or mishandled over time. The tiny Denver Mint mark beneath the date added another layer of collector appeal, because certain 1957 examples display stronger strike quality and better preservation than typical circulation finds. This changes everything because rarity in coin collecting is not always about low mintage numbers. Sometimes it is about survival. Millions may have been struck originally, but only a tiny fraction survived decades later with collector-worthy originality still intact. Inside major auction houses, coins like this create extraordinary tension. Imagine a darkened room filled with silent bidders staring intensely at a giant screen displaying a single copper penny magnified larger than life. Auction staff handle the coin carefully with gloves while experts study every inch beneath focused lighting. The auctioneer begins calmly, but within seconds paddles start rising across the room. The price climbs rapidly. $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. Audience members glance around in disbelief as wealthy collectors continue competing for ownership. Nobody laughs anymore because everyone inside that room understands they are watching history change hands. This coin has crossed six figures. It has sold for more than luxury vehicles, more than dream vacations, and more than many people earn in several years of work. Then comes the final hammer price that sends shockwaves through the crowd. $180,000. A single wheat penny. The room falls silent for a moment because even experienced bidders sometimes struggle to process how an overlooked 1-cent coin became a silent fortune hiding in plain sight. Stay with me because the psychology behind this market is more powerful than most people realize. Collectors chase coins like the 1957 wheat penny because they represent disappearing pieces of American history. Every year, more original examples vanish permanently due to environmental exposure, careless storage, or amateur cleaning attempts. That shrinking supply creates intense pressure whenever a well-preserved coin enters the market. Demand continues rising because younger generations are now discovering wheat pennies through online auctions, estate sales, and viral treasure hunting stories. Many collectors feel emotionally connected to these coins because they remember grandparents carrying them decades ago or finding them hidden inside old drawers during childhood. That nostalgia transforms simple copper cents into historical artifacts people desperately want to preserve. Most people miss this detail entirely, but collector demand often increases dramatically for coins tied to the final years of iconic designs. Since the wheat reverse ended after 1958, late-date wheat pennies now carry added emotional importance across the hobby. The 1957 stands near the end of that legendary series, making attractive survivors especially desirable among advanced collectors and investors alike. Another reason this penny commands such fascination is the mystery surrounding circulation survival. Think about how many opportunities existed for this coin to disappear forever. It could have been lost beneath floorboards, buried in dirt, melted for scrap, damaged by moisture, or destroyed inside vending machines. Yet somehow certain examples survive decades while preserving enough detail to remain desirable today. That survival story becomes part of the coin's identity. Collectors study the color carefully because natural brown toning often indicates originality and proper aging. Some examples even display traces of faded red copper beneath the darker surfaces, creating visual depth impossible to reproduce artificially. This is why professional grading matters so much. Reputable grading companies examine authenticity, surface quality, strike sharpness, and overall preservation before assigning official grades that dramatically influence market value. One small difference in condition can mean tens of thousands of dollars in price changes. That is why experienced numismatists never rush into selling valuable wheat pennies without authentication and careful market evaluation first. A bankroll hunter once described finding a 1957 wheat penny as feeling like uncovering buried treasure in modern circulation. He had searched thousands of ordinary rolls before spotting the familiar wheat reverse peeking between newer Lincoln cents. Most people would have ignored it instantly, but years of experience taught him to slow down and inspect every detail carefully. Under magnification, the coin revealed balanced wear. untouched surfaces, and the exact natural appearance collectors crave. Stories like this continue fueling obsession across the coin community because they remind viewers that hidden fortunes are still circulating quietly through everyday life. Somewhere tonight, another rare wheat penny could be sitting inside a cash register, hidden in an inherited jar, or forgotten inside a dresser drawer while nobody realizes its potential value. That possibility creates powerful excitement, replay value, and endless curiosity among collectors worldwide. So, before you spend another penny, remember the story of the 1957 wheat penny carefully. This tiny copper coin, weighing only 3.11 grams and measuring just 19 millimeters wide, carries far more than face value. It represents the final years of America's iconic wheat penny era, struck at the Denver Mint during a booming chapter of U.S. history and surviving against incredible odds through decades of circulation. Its original brown toning, preserved wheat details, and untouched surfaces have transformed certain fine-condition examples into hidden treasures worth astonishing amounts of money. The market value for elite specimens has climbed as high as $180,000. Proving that even ordinary-looking pennies can become life-changing discoveries. Never clean these coins. Never polish them. Handle them only by the edges, store them safely, and seek professional grading before making any decisions. Because what looks like pocket change today could secretly be one of the rarest silent fortunes still hiding in America's everyday circulation. Coin number 3. Nobody inside the crowded gas station noticed the old penny sliding across the counter that night. The customer paid in cash, grabbed the receipt, and walked away while a tired cashier dropped the coin into the register beside dozens of ordinary cents. But standing in line behind them was a retired coin collector who suddenly felt his attention lock onto a single dark copper surface buried among the change. He later said something about the penny looked different, almost mysterious. The date read 1956, and beneath it sat the tiny D mint mark from Denver. What truly stopped him cold were the unusual black spots scattered naturally across the surface. Most people would assume those marks ruined the coin, yet experienced collectors know the exact opposite can sometimes be true. Those dark spots can signal decades of untouched originality, proving the surfaces were never aggressively cleaned or chemically altered. That single moment inside a noisy gas station would eventually lead to one of the most intense private coin auctions the collector had ever witnessed. This changes everything because somewhere tonight, another rare wheat penny may already be hiding in somebody's pocket change while the world ignores it completely. Do not spend this coin if you ever discover a 1956 wheat penny with natural black spotting and balanced wear, because collectors are hunting examples like this with an obsession most people cannot imagine. The history behind the 1956 wheat penny begins during an era when America was expanding faster than ever before. Families were buying televisions, highways stretched across the country, and the United States Mint was working around the clock to produce coins for a booming economy. At the Denver Mint, massive presses thundered endlessly as millions of Lincoln wheat pennies rolled into circulation. Workers at the time never imagined that decades later collectors would carefully inspect those same coins under microscopes while paying astonishing amounts for the best surviving examples. Most of the pennies produced in 1956 lived hard lives. They bounced through vending machines, lunch counters, diners, movie theaters, and factory payroll systems before eventually disappearing into circulation damage or destruction. Yet a tiny number survived with something extraordinary still intact, original surfaces untouched by harsh cleaning. That is where the mystery of the black spots becomes important. Pay attention to this detail because many inexperienced owners accidentally destroy hidden fortunes trying to remove dark toning or discolorations from old copper coins. In reality, collectors often view naturally aged surfaces as evidence of authenticity and originality. The black spots seen on certain 1950-60 wheat pennies developed slowly over decades through oxidation and environmental exposure, creating patterns impossible to perfectly duplicate artificially. This is why some coins with dark surfaces ignite fierce bidding wars, while bright polished examples are ignored completely. The design itself remains one of the most iconic images in American coin history. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's portrait faces right beneath the words, "In God We Trust," while Liberty appears beside him, and the date 1956 sits proudly next to the Denver Mint mark. That tiny D beneath the year may seem insignificant to casual viewers, but collectors understand mint marks can completely transform a coin's desirability and identity. Flip the coin over and two elegant wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum arching above. The wheat reverse symbolized American agriculture, resilience, and prosperity for nearly half a century before the design disappeared forever after 1958. That approaching end of the series adds emotional weight to late-date wheat pennies like the 1950-60 because collectors know they represent the final chapter of an American classic. Most people miss this entirely. To them, it is just another old penny. But inside the collector world, these coins represent disappearing pieces of history becoming harder to find every single year. What happens next is shocking because beneath its ordinary appearance, the 1950-60 wheat penny contains specifications collectors study obsessively. The coin was struck from an alloy composed primarily of 95% copper blended with tin and zinc, giving it the warm tone associated with classic Lincoln cents. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, carries a thickness near 1.52 millimeters, and features a smooth plain edge that feels completely ordinary in the hand. Yet, experienced numismatists examine every microscopic detail under magnification. They inspect the sharpness of Lincoln's hairlines, the clarity of the wheat ears, the texture of the fields, and the exact pattern of toning spread across the surfaces. This changes everything because originality matters more than brightness in the rare coin market. A naturally aged coin with black spotting and untouched surfaces may command dramatically higher prices than a cleaned example stripped of its history. Collectors understand that once a coin is polished, dipped, or scrubbed, the original skin disappears forever. Tiny hairline scratches form instantly, reducing both eye appeal and market demand. That is why serious experts constantly warn new collectors never to clean old coins under any circumstances. One estate sale in Colorado became legendary among collectors after an old cigar box filled with coins appeared on a folding table beside dusty household items. Most visitors walked past without paying attention. But a younger collector searching through the box suddenly noticed a dark 1950-60 wheat penny with unusual black spotting and remarkably balanced wear. He purchased the entire box for almost nothing, thinking the penny simply looked interesting. Later that evening, he examined the coin under proper lighting and realized the surfaces displayed authentic aging patterns impossible to fake convincingly. The wheat lines remained visible. Lincoln's portrait still carried strong detail. The black spotting appeared natural rather than corrosive. Word spread quickly after the coin reached local experts, and soon professional dealers began urging the owner to submit it for grading. Stay with me because this is where hidden wealth becomes real. Once certified authentic and properly graded, The penny entered a market where elite collectors compete aggressively for original late-date wheat cents with strong eye appeal. What began inside a dusty cigar box eventually transformed into a coin worth more than many luxury vehicles. Auction rooms become almost silent when coins like this appear publicly for sale. Imagine bright overhead lights reflecting off polished wood, while rows of serious collectors sit motionless, studying enlarged images of a single copper penny projected across giant screens. Nobody laughs. Nobody checks phones. Every bidder understands the importance of originality, survival rate, and collector demand. The auctioneer begins calmly, but within moments paddles start lifting across the room. The numbers climb rapidly. $15,000 becomes $30,000. 30 becomes 70. Audience members exchange nervous glances as the competition intensifies between determined buyers unwilling to lose the coin. This penny has crossed six figures. It has sold for more than luxury vacations, more than sports cars, and more than some homes in smaller American towns. Then the room falls completely silent before the final hammer drops at an astonishing $184,000. A single 1-cent coin hidden for decades in ordinary circulation. What makes that moment even more unbelievable is the realization that similar pennies may still exist unnoticed in jars, drawers, piggy banks, and forgotten collections around the world. Collector demand for the 1,950 wheat penny continues growing because the supply of untouched examples keeps shrinking. Over the years, countless coins were destroyed by moisture, harsh cleaning, fingerprints, environmental contamination, and careless storage conditions. Others disappeared permanently inside circulation before collectors could rescue them. That shrinking population creates intense competition whenever naturally preserved examples appear on the market. The black spotting seen on certain specimens adds another layer of intrigue because it often signals the coin escaped artificial enhancement. Many advanced collectors now prefer original surfaces with natural toning over unnaturally bright coins that appear stripped or processed. Most people miss this detail completely, but originality has become one of the strongest forces driving modern coin prices upward. A naturally aged wheat penny tells a survival story impossible to recreate. Every mark, tone shift, and surface texture becomes evidence that the coin traveled honestly through history. Another reason these pennies attract massive attention is nostalgia. Millions of Americans remember wheat pennies from childhood. Grandparents stored them in jars. Parents handed them to children as lucky coins. Older generations spent them daily before the wheat reverse vanished forever after 1958. That emotional connection creates powerful long-term demand because collectors are not simply buying copper. They are preserving memories, history, and disappearing symbols of another America. Younger collectors entering the hobby today see wheat pennies as hidden treasure still hiding in circulation, which fuels endless searches through bank rolls and estate collections. Every discovery story spreads excitement through the community because it proves valuable coins are still out there waiting to be found. Somewhere tonight, someone may unknowingly spend a six-figure penny on snacks or gasoline without ever checking the date beneath Lincoln's portrait. Professional grading companies play a major role in determining which examples achieve extraordinary values. Experts carefully evaluate surface originality, strike sharpness, wear consistency, and overall eye appeal before assigning official grades. Even tiny differences matter enormously. One small grade increase can add tens of thousands of dollars to a coin's market value. That is why experienced collectors never rush into selling rare wheat pennies immediately after discovery. They research the market, compare auction histories, and seek authentication from respected grading services first. Do not handle these coins carelessly. Always hold them by the edges. Never rub the surfaces with cloth or chemicals. Store them inside protective holders away from humidity and extreme temperatures. One careless mistake can permanently erase a fortune. The mystery surrounding the 1956D wheat penny with black spotting continues growing because hidden examples may still exist in ordinary places. Inside forgotten tackle boxes, beneath dresser drawers, mixed with modern change inside coin jars nobody has touched for years. That possibility keeps collectors searching constantly, hoping the next incredible discovery is waiting nearby. The idea that a 1-cent coin measuring only 19 millimeters wide and weighing just 3.11 grams could secretly hold enormous wealth feels almost unbelievable. Yet the market proves otherwise again and again. Collectors are willing to pay astonishing prices for originality, rarity, and survival because they understand something casual observers do not. Once these coins disappear forever, no amount of money can recreate them. So, before you spend another old penny, remember the story of the 1956D wheat penny carefully. This tiny copper coin from the Denver Mint carries more than historical significance. It carries the possibility of hidden wealth hiding quietly in everyday life. Its original black spotting, untouched surfaces, and shrinking survival numbers have transformed certain fine-condition examples into legendary collector prizes worth astonishing amounts of money. Elite specimens have reached values as high as $184,000, proving that even worn-looking pocket change can become a life-changing discovery under the right circumstances. Check every wheat penny closely. Study the mint mark. Protect the surfaces. Never clean the coin. And never assume ordinary-looking change cannot contain extraordinary treasure, because somewhere out there another silent fortune may already be passing unnoticed from hand to hand. Coin number 4. Woman cleaning out her late father's workshop almost threw the penny away by accident. It sat alone near the bottom of an old toolbox, covered in a strange gray layer that made it look dull and lifeless compared to the brighter coins beside it. To most people, it looked damaged, dirty, maybe even worthless. But just before the coin disappeared into a trash bag, something stopped her. The date caught her eye. 1955. No mint mark beneath the year. She placed it under the kitchen light, and suddenly the coin looked different. The gray surface wasn't random damage at all. It was decades of untouched aging spread naturally across one of the most desired wheat pennies collectors dream about finding. That single moment turned an ignored penny into the center of a shocking collector investigation that would later explode inside the auction world. Most people never realize hidden treasure often looks ordinary, worn, or even ugly at first glance. That is exactly why valuable coins continue disappearing into circulation every day. Somebody buys coffee with them. Somebody leaves them in tip jars. Somebody spends them at gas stations without ever noticing the fortune passing through their fingers. Do not spend this coin if you ever discover a 1955 wheat penny without a mint mark and carrying an unusual gray layer, because collectors are obsessed with original surviving examples, and the value connected to the right coin can completely change a person's life overnight. The story behind the 1955 wheat penny begins during one of the most fascinating periods in American coin history. In the mid-1950s, the United States was booming with post-war energy. Factories operated day and night, suburbs expanded rapidly, and the U.S. Mint worked nonstop to supply billions of coins for a growing economy. At the Philadelphia Mint, wheat pennies were struck without mint marks beneath the date, creating coins that would later become legendary among collectors. Yet nobody at the time imagined that certain surviving 1955 pennies would one day command prices approaching $200,000. Most examples lived rough lives. They rattled through vending machines, rolled beneath car seats, disappeared into piggy banks, and suffered decades of circulation where before vanishing forever. But a tiny number survived with something collectors now desperately search for: untouched originality. Pay attention to this detail, because the unusual gray layer seen on certain examples is one of the biggest reasons experienced numismatists become excited. Casual owners often mistake this color for dirt or damage and attempt to clean it away. That decision destroys value instantly. The gray appearance can develop naturally over decades as copper reacts slowly with environmental conditions, forming unique surface textures impossible to perfectly recreate. Those surfaces act like fingerprints from history itself, proving the coin aged honestly without aggressive polishing or chemical alteration. The design of the 1955 wheat penny remains one of the most recognizable images ever placed on American currency. Abraham Lincoln's portrait dominates the obverse, facing right beneath the words, "In God We Trust." The word liberty appears to the left while the date 1955 rests on the opposite side without any mint mark below it, confirming its Philadelphia origin. On the reverse, two graceful wheat ears frame the inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum curves across the top edge. That wheat reverse became a symbol of American resilience and prosperity for generations before disappearing forever after 1958. By 1955, the series was nearing its final years, which adds enormous emotional and historical weight to surviving coins from this period. Collectors today view these pennies as surviving relics from another America, a time of diners, jukeboxes, chrome automobiles, and booming industrial optimism. This changes everything because emotional nostalgia drives enormous demand in the collector market. People are not simply buying copper coins. They are buying memories, survival stories, and disappearing pieces of history. What happens next is shocking because beneath its simple appearance, the 1955 wheat penny contains technical details collectors inspect obsessively. The coin was struck using an alloy of 95% copper mixed with tin and zinc, giving it the rich metallic warmth classic wheat pennies are known for. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, and carries a thickness around 1.52 millimeters, with a completely plain edge. Most people would never suspect something so tiny and ordinary could secretly rival luxury investments in value. Yet elite collectors understand that rarity is often hidden in microscopic details invisible to casual eyes. Under magnification, experts study the sharpness of Lincoln's cheek, the texture surrounding the lettering, and the definition inside the wheat stalks. They analyze toning patterns carefully because natural aging dramatically affects desirability. The gray layer seen on some 1955 examples often indicates the surfaces remained untouched for decades, which excites collectors far more than unnatural brightness created through cleaning. Most people miss this entirely. They believe shiny means valuable. In reality, harshly polished coins lose much of their collector appeal because cleaning creates tiny scratches and destroys the original surface skin permanently. Once originality disappears, the historical integrity disappears with it. One of the most unbelievable discoveries involving a 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny happened during a small-town estate auction. A family selling inherited belongings placed several jars of old coins on a folding table beside dusty tools and household items. Few people paid attention until a younger collector noticed a strangely toned penny buried beneath modern cents. The coin carried a muted gray layer, spread evenly across the surfaces, almost giving it a ghost-like appearance under the room's fluorescent lighting. Curious, he purchased the jar for almost nothing and later examined the penny more closely at home. The moment magnification revealed untouched surfaces and authentic wear patterns, he realized the coin might be extraordinary. Local dealers became interested immediately. Soon professional grading experts were contacted, and the penny entered a world where rarity, originality, and survival rates determine astonishing prices. This changes everything because hidden fortunes are not always discovered inside museums or vaults. Sometimes they wait silently inside forgotten jars, sitting in ordinary homes for decades while nobody realizes their importance. Inside auction houses, coins like this create an atmosphere filled with tension and disbelief. Imagine a quiet room illuminated by soft overhead lights, while wealthy collectors stare intensely at a giant screen displaying a single penny magnified hundreds of times larger than life. Every bidder studies the surfaces carefully, watching how the gray toning flows naturally across Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks. The auctioneer begins calmly, but the moment bidding starts, the room changes completely. Paddles rise immediately. The price jumps higher and higher. $20,000 becomes $50,000. 50 becomes 90. Audience members glance at each other nervously as determined buyers refuse to back down. This coin has crossed 6 figures. It has sold for more than luxury sports cars, more than expensive vacations, and more than many families earn in years of work. Then the final hammer crashes down at an astonishing $197,500. A single penny once ignored in circulation suddenly becomes one of the most talked about hidden treasures in the collector world. Stay with me because the reason behind this market obsession is even more fascinating than the price itself. Collectors chase the 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny because truly original survivors are disappearing rapidly. Over the decades, countless examples were destroyed by moisture, environmental damage, improper storage, and amateur cleaning attempts. Others vanished permanently into circulation before collectors realized how desirable they would become. That shrinking population creates enormous pressure whenever naturally preserved examples appear publicly for sale. The gray layer seen on certain coins adds another level of intrigue because it often signals long-term, untouched aging rather than artificial enhancement. Serious collectors prefer surfaces that tell honest stories. Every shade, mark, and texture becomes evidence of survival. Most people never understand this psychological side of coin collecting. They see old money. Collectors see irreplaceable artifacts carrying decades of history. Professional grading companies now play a massive role in determining which coins achieve elite status. Experts inspect every microscopic detail under specialized lighting, evaluating authenticity, wear patterns, strike sharpness, and surface originality. Even the smallest difference in grade can change market value dramatically. One additional grading point might mean tens of thousands of dollars in added worth. That is why experienced numismatists never rush to sell valuable wheat pennies immediately after discovery. They protect the surfaces carefully, research market demand, and seek certification from respected grading services first. Do not clean these coins under any circumstances. Never scrub them with cloth, baking soda, toothpaste, or chemical solutions. Cleaning destroys the original surface layer collectors value most. Handle rare pennies only by the edges and store them safely inside protective holders away from moisture and fingerprints. Another reason these coins continue attracting massive attention is the growing fear that hidden treasures are still circulating unnoticed today. Think about how many people ignore old pennies completely. A rare 1955 wheat penny could be sitting inside a grocery store register right now. It could be hidden inside a child's piggy bank, forgotten inside a dresser drawer, or mixed with ordinary change inside a car cup holder. That possibility fuels endless excitement throughout the collector community because every major discovery reminds people that life-changing finds still happen unexpectedly. Somewhere tonight, someone may accidentally spend a coin worth nearly $200,000 simply because they never learned what to look for. The emotional power behind the 1955 wheat penny also comes from its position within American history. By the mid-1950s, the wheat reverse design was approaching retirement, making these late-date examples deeply important to collectors who love classic Lincoln cents. They represent the closing years of an era before the Lincoln Memorial design replaced the famous wheat stalks forever. That transition transformed surviving wheat pennies into symbols of lost American history. Older generations remember seeing them daily in circulation, while younger collectors hunt them like buried treasure hidden inside modern change. This combination of nostalgia, rarity, and survival creates a market unlike almost anything else in coin collecting. So, before you spend another penny, remember the story of the 1955 wheat penny without a mint mark carefully. This tiny copper coin, weighing only 3.11 grams and measuring just 19 millimeters across, carries enormous historical significance hidden beneath an ordinary appearance. Its natural gray layer, untouched surfaces, and shrinking survival numbers have transformed certain fine-condition examples into legendary collector prizes worth astonishing amounts of money. Elite specimens have reached incredible values as high as $197,500, proving that hidden fortunes still exist where nobody expects them. Check every old penny carefully. Study the date. Protect the original surfaces. Never clean the coin. And never assume an ordinary-looking wheat penny cannot secretly be one of the rarest silent treasures still surviving in everyday circulation today. Coin number 5. Collector once described the discovery of this coin as feeling like finding buried treasure in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. He had stopped at a small roadside diner somewhere outside Denver and received a handful of change after paying the bill. Most people would have shoved the coins into their pocket without a second thought, but one penny looked strangely darker than the rest. It carried a soft black layer across the surface, not thick enough to hide the design completely, but just enough to make the coin feel older, quiet, almost mysterious. The date read 1953, and beneath it sat the tiny D mint mark from the Denver Mint. The coin showed circulation where from decades of passing through thousands of hands, yet the details were still alive beneath the darkened surface. Something about it felt important. That single moment inside a noisy diner eventually led to one of the most shocking private sales in modern wheat penny collecting. Most people never realize hidden fortunes often travel silently through everyday life disguised as worn pocket change. Somebody spends them on coffee. Somebody leaves them in vending machines. Somebody drops them into donation jars without ever understanding what slipped through their fingers. This changes everything because the 1953D wheat penny with a lightly black layered surface has become one of the most fascinating hidden treasures collectors desperately search for today. Do not spend this coin if you ever find one hiding in circulation, because examples with original untouched surfaces are becoming incredibly difficult to locate. The story behind the 1953D wheat penny begins during a remarkable chapter in American history. The early 1950s were filled with industrial growth, post-war optimism, and rapidly expanding cities across the United States. Factories worked non-stop, automobiles flooded highways, and the U.S. Mint struggled to keep enough coinage in circulation for a booming economy. At the Denver Mint, massive coin presses struck millions of Lincoln wheat pennies carrying the tiny D mint mark beneath the date. Workers treated them as ordinary cents destined for circulation, never imagining that decades later collectors would inspect those same coins under microscopes while competing fiercely to own the finest survivors. Most examples disappeared forever through heavy circulation, environmental damage, cleaning, and neglect. But a tiny number escaped destruction while preserving something modern collectors value more than brightness: originality. Pay attention to this detail, because the lightly black layer seen on certain surviving 1953D wheat pennies often signals decades of natural aging untouched by harsh cleaning chemicals. Casual owners frequently mistake dark toning for damage and attempt to polish it away, not realizing they are destroying part of the coin's historical identity. Experienced collectors understand authentic surfaces cannot be recreated once removed. The blackened layer tells a survival story, proving the coin aged honestly through time rather than being artificially altered for appearance. The design of the 1953D wheat penny remains one of the most beloved coin images in American history. On the front, Abraham Lincoln's portrait faces right beneath the inscription, "In God We Trust," while Liberty appears beside him and the date 1953 rests opposite the Denver Mint mark. That tiny D may seem insignificant to ordinary people, but collectors know mint marks can dramatically affect desirability and market demand. Flip the coin over and the famous wheat ears frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum curves across the top. For nearly half a century, this reverse design represented American strength, agriculture, and resilience before disappearing forever after 1958. By the early 1950s, the Wheat Penny series had already become part of everyday American life, moving through countless cash registers, diners, train stations, and corner stores. Yet today, surviving examples with natural circulation wear and untouched surfaces have become increasingly difficult to locate because so many were cleaned or damaged over time. This changes everything because rarity is not always about how many coins were minted. Sometimes it is about how many survived with their originality still intact decades later. What happens next is shocking because beneath its small size and ordinary appearance, the 1953D wheat penny contains technical details collectors analyze obsessively. The coin was struck using an alloy composed primarily of 95% copper blended with tin and zinc, giving it the warm metallic tone associated with classic wheat cents. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, carries a thickness around 1.52 millimeters, and features a smooth plain edge that hides its extraordinary value behind an everyday feel. Most people would never imagine a tiny circulated penny could compete with luxury investments. Yet, experienced numismatists understand microscopic details determine everything in this market. Under magnification, they inspect Lincoln's hairlines, the visibility of the wheat stalks, the texture of the coin fields, and especially the toning spread across the surfaces. The lightly black layered appearance seen on certain examples creates powerful collector appeal because it often indicates natural oxidation developed slowly over decades. Most people miss this entirely. They believe brighter coins are automatically better. In reality, aggressive cleaning destroys originality, leaving behind unnatural shine and microscopic scratches experts detect instantly. A naturally toned circulated coin with honest wear can attract far more excitement than a polished example stripped of its history. One of the most unbelievable discoveries involving a 1953D wheat penny happened during a routine bankroll search. A young collector had spent months searching through endless rolls of pennies hoping to find older wheat cents. After hours of disappointment, one darkened coin suddenly appeared between modern Lincoln memorial cents. The penny looked ordinary at first glance, carrying a soft black layer and visible circulation wear. But under proper lighting, the collector noticed something extraordinary. The surfaces appeared completely original. The wheat lines remained visible. Lincoln's portrait still carried strong detail despite years of circulation. Most importantly, the toning looked natural rather than artificial. The coin was later shown to a respected dealer who immediately recognized its potential. Word spread quietly among advanced collectors, and soon professional grading companies became involved. That single penny discovered inside an ordinary bankroll eventually entered the high-end collector market, where serious buyers compete aggressively for authentic surviving wheat pennies with untouched surfaces. This changes everything because it proves hidden fortunes are still circulating silently through everyday life, while most people never bother checking their change. Inside auction rooms, coins like the 1953D create almost unbearable tension. Imagine rows of wealthy collectors sitting motionless beneath bright lights while giant screens display enlarged images of a single darkened penny. Every bidder studies the surfaces carefully, watching how the lightly black layer flows naturally across Lincoln's portrait and the wheat ears. Nobody speaks loudly. Nobody wants distractions. The auctioneer begins calmly, but within moments paddles rise throughout the room. The price climbs rapidly. $20,000 becomes $40,000. $40,000 becomes $80,000. Audience members exchange stunned looks as determined buyers refuse to back away. This penny has crossed 6 figures. It has sold for more than luxury cars, more than expensive vacations, and more than many people earn in several years. Then comes the final hammer price that shocks the room completely: $205,000. A single 1-cent coin that once circulated unnoticed through ordinary American life suddenly becomes one of the most valuable wheat pennies collectors have ever fought to own. Stay with me because the reason behind this obsession is even deeper than the money itself. Collectors chase the 1953D wheat penny because every year the supply of original surviving examples becomes smaller. Over decades, countless coins were destroyed by moisture, environmental exposure, improper storage, and amateur cleaning attempts. Others vanished permanently inside circulation before collectors understood their future importance. That shrinking population creates intense competition whenever naturally preserved examples appear publicly for sale. The lightly black layered surfaces on certain coins add another level of mystery and desirability because they often indicate untouched aging rather than chemical enhancement. Serious numismatists now prioritize originality above almost everything else. Every tone variation, surface texture, and where pattern becomes part of the coin's identity. Most people never understand this side of collecting. They see old money. Collectors see historical artifacts that survived against impossible odds. Professional grading has become essential in determining which wheat pennies achieve elite market value. Experts examine every microscopic detail under specialized lighting, evaluating authenticity, strike quality, wear consistency, and surface preservation. Even the slightest difference in grade can dramatically change auction prices. One additional grading point might add tens of thousands of dollars to the final value. That is why experienced collectors never rush into selling important discoveries immediately. They research market trends carefully, seek authentication from trusted grading companies, and protect the surfaces from damage at all costs. Never clean these coins. Never polish them with cloth or chemicals. Cleaning destroys the original surface skin collectors value most. Handle rare pennies only by the edges and store them inside protective holders away from humidity, fingerprints, and environmental contamination. Another reason the 1953D wheat penny continues attracting enormous attention is the growing realization that valuable examples may still exist unnoticed today. Somewhere right now, another rare wheat penny could be sitting in a gas station cash register, hidden inside an old coffee can, or buried beneath modern change inside a forgotten piggy bank. That possibility fuels endless excitement across the collector world because every new discovery proves hidden treasure remains real. People accidentally spend fortunes every day simply because they never learned what details to watch for. Most people overlook dark surfaces entirely, assuming they indicate damage or low value. Yet sometimes those exact surfaces become the reason collectors compete so aggressively for ownership. The emotional connection surrounding wheat pennies also drives powerful long-term demand. Older generations remember using them daily before the wheat reverse disappeared forever after 1958. Younger collectors view them as relics from another America, symbols of history still hiding in ordinary circulation. The 1953D sits near the final years of the legendary wheat series, giving it additional importance among advanced collectors. Every surviving coin becomes part of a shrinking historical population impossible to replace once lost forever. That combination of nostalgia, rarity, and originality continues pushing collector demand higher year after year. So before you spend another penny, remember the story of the 1953D wheat penny carefully. This tiny copper coin, weighing just 3.11 grams and measuring only 19 millimeters wide, hides extraordinary value behind an ordinary appearance. Its lightly black-layered surfaces, natural circulation wear, and shrinking survival numbers have transformed certain examples into legendary hidden treasures worth astonishing amounts of money. Elite specimens have reached incredible values as high as $205,000, proving that forgotten pocket change can secretly become life-changing wealth under the right circumstances. Check every wheat penny carefully. Study the mint mark. Protect the original surfaces. Never clean the coin. And never assume a darkened circulated penny cannot secretly be one of the rarest silent fortunes still moving unnoticed through America's everyday circulation. Coin number 6. A security guard working the night shift at an old apartment building once emptied his pockets onto a table during a break and noticed a strange penny staring back at him beneath the fluorescent lights. It looked darker than the others, almost shadowed by time itself. The coin carried a lightly black layer spread naturally across the copper surface, and although it showed honest circulation wear, the details still stood strong beneath the toning. Most people would have ignored it instantly or tossed it into a vending machine without a second thought. But something about the date stopped him cold. 1951. No mint mark beneath the year. At that moment, he had no idea he was holding one of the most mysterious hidden treasures collectors desperately search for across America. That single penny later became the center of an astonishing collector frenzy after experts confirmed its originality and preservation. This changes everything because somewhere tonight, another valuable wheat penny may already be sitting unnoticed inside someone's pocket, cup holder, or cash drawer while nobody realizes they are seconds away from accidentally spending a fortune. Do not spend this coin if you ever find a 1951 wheat penny without a mint mark and carrying a naturally darkened surface, because collectors are paying extraordinary amounts for surviving examples exactly like this. The story of the 1951 wheat penny begins during a fascinating era of American history when the country was rebuilding its identity after World War II. Factories were roaring back to life, families were moving into new suburban neighborhoods, and everyday commerce demanded massive amounts of coinage. At the Philadelphia Mint, Lincoln wheat pennies were struck without mint marks beneath the date, entering circulation by the millions as ordinary 1-cent coins nobody expected to become valuable someday. Yet, over the decades, most examples vanished forever. Some were lost in the dirt beneath old homes. Others corroded in forgotten jars or disappeared through endless circulation damage. A huge number were cleaned aggressively by owners who mistakenly believed polishing old coins increased value. That decision destroyed countless hidden treasures permanently. But a tiny number survived untouched, carrying authentic surfaces and naturally aged toning that serious collectors now obsess over. Pay attention to this detail, because the lightly black layer seen on certain 1951 wheat pennies often signals originality rather than damage. Copper changes slowly over time as it reacts with oxygen, moisture, and environmental conditions, creating darkened surfaces impossible to perfectly reproduce artificially. Experienced collectors understand these aging patterns can actually increase desirability because they prove the coin escaped harsh cleaning and survived honestly through history. The design itself remains one of the most iconic images in American coinage history. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's portrait faces right beneath the inscription, "In God We Trust," while Liberty appears beside his profile and the date 1951 sits on the opposite side with no mint mark below it, confirming its Philadelphia origin. Flip the coin over and the legendary wheat ears frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum stretches proudly across the upper edge. That wheat reverse represented American resilience and agricultural strength for generations before the design disappeared forever after 1958. By 1951, the wheat penny had already become deeply woven into everyday American life, traveling through diners, train stations, barber shops, grocery stores, and movie theaters across the country. Yet what once looked ordinary has now transformed into one of the most hunted forms of hidden treasure in the collector world. Most people miss this because they focus only on shiny modern coins, while experienced numismatists know history often hides inside worn and naturally aged surfaces. What happens next is shocking because beneath its small size and humble appearance, the 1951 wheat penny contains technical details collectors analyze obsessively. The coin was struck using an alloy made primarily from 95% copper combined with tin and zinc, giving it the warm metallic tone classic wheat cents are famous for. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, carries a thickness near 1.52 millimeters, and features a smooth plain edge that feels completely ordinary in the hand. Yet experienced collectors inspect every microscopic detail under magnification. They study Lincoln's jawline, the sharpness of the lettering, the texture surrounding the wheat ears, and especially the surface toning spread naturally across the fields. This changes everything because originality matters more than brightness in the rare coin market. Many people still believe cleaning improves value, but the opposite is true. Cleaning removes the original skin collectors desperately want to preserve. Once a coin is polished, dipped, or scrubbed, tiny scratches and unnatural brightness appear instantly under magnification, reducing desirability dramatically. A naturally toned 1951 wheat penny with a lightly black layered appearance can attract intense collector attention precisely because it survived untouched. One of the most unbelievable discoveries involving this coin happened during the renovation of an old Pennsylvania farmhouse. Workers tearing apart a bedroom wall uncovered a dusty tin box hidden between wooden beams for decades. Inside sat dozens of ordinary coins covered in dirt and age. Most were heavily damaged, but one penny immediately stood out because of its darkened surfaces and surprisingly balanced detail. The date read 1951, and there was no mint mark beneath it. At first, nobody thought much of the find. But after the coin was shown to a local numismatic expert, everything changed. The lightly black layer appeared completely natural. The surfaces remained original. The wheat stalks still displayed impressive definition despite years of circulation. Soon the penny was sent for professional grading, where specialists confirmed it as a highly desirable surviving example of a late-era wheat penny with exceptional originality. Word spread quickly through collector circles, and within weeks serious buyers were competing aggressively for ownership. What began hidden inside an old farmhouse wall eventually transformed into one of the most talked about wheat penny discoveries of the year. Inside elite auction rooms, coins like the 1951 no-mint mark wheat penny create extraordinary tension. Imagine wealthy collectors seated beneath soft lighting while giant screens magnify every inch of a single penny for the audience to examine. Nobody looks distracted. Every bidder watches carefully as the coin rotates slowly under professional lighting, revealing its naturally darkened surfaces and surviving details. The auctioneer opens bidding calmly, but within seconds the atmosphere changes completely. Paddles rise across the room. $20,000 becomes 40. 40 becomes 70. The numbers continue climbing while whispers spread through the audience. This coin has crossed 6 figures. It has sold for more than luxury sports cars, more than dream vacations, and more than some homes in smaller towns. Then the room falls silent before the final hammer crashes down at an astonishing $218,500. A single penny once treated like ordinary change suddenly becomes one of the most valuable hidden treasures in the collector market. Stay with me because the reason collectors fight so fiercely for coins like this goes far beyond money alone. Collectors chase the 1951 wheat penny without a mint mark because every year original survivors become harder to find. Most examples suffer damage long before collectors realize their future importance. Moisture, fingerprints, environmental contamination, improper storage, and amateur cleaning attempts destroyed countless coins forever. Others vanished permanently through circulation. That shrinking supply creates intense competition whenever naturally preserved examples appear publicly for sale. The lightly black layered surfaces seen on certain specimens add another layer of mystery because they often indicate authentic aging untouched by modern alteration. Serious numismatists now prioritize originality above nearly everything else. Every mark, color variation, and texture becomes evidence of the coin's survival journey through history. Most people never understand this emotional side of collecting. To them, it is just old money. To collectors, it is a disappearing artifact from another era of America. Professional grading companies now play a critical role in determining which wheat pennies achieve elite market value. Experts examine authenticity, strike quality, wear consistency, and surface preservation using specialized lighting and magnification. Even the smallest grading difference can mean tens of thousands of dollars in price changes. That is why experienced collectors never rush into selling important discoveries immediately after finding them. They protect the surfaces carefully, research auction trends, and seek certification from respected grading services before making decisions. Never clean these coins. Never polish them with cloth or chemicals. Cleaning permanently destroys the original surfaces collectors value most. Handle rare pennies only by the edges and store them inside protective holders away from humidity and environmental damage. Another reason the 1951 wheat penny continues attracting enormous attention is the growing fear that valuable examples remain hidden in everyday circulation right now. Somewhere tonight, another rare wheat penny could be sitting in a grocery store register, hidden inside a forgotten piggy bank, or buried beneath modern coins inside an inherited jar nobody has touched in years. That possibility keeps collectors searching constantly because every new discovery proves hidden wealth still exists where ordinary people least expect it. Someone may accidentally spend a six-figure penny tomorrow morning without ever noticing the date beneath Lincoln's portrait. Most people overlook darkened surfaces entirely, assuming they indicate damage or low value. Yet those exact surfaces may be the reason elite collectors compete aggressively to own certain examples. The emotional power surrounding wheat pennies also continues driving demand higher every year. Older generations remember carrying them daily before the wheat reverse disappeared forever after 1958. Younger collectors see them as relics from another America, symbols of history still surviving quietly inside modern life. The 1951 No Mint Mark Wheat Penny stands near the closing years of the legendary wheat series, making it especially desirable among advanced collectors who understand its historical importance. Every surviving coin becomes part of a shrinking population impossible to replace once lost forever. That combination of rarity, nostalgia, and originality creates a collector market fueled by obsession, fear of missing out, and the dream of discovering hidden treasure in plain sight. So, before you spend another penny, remember the story of the 1951 wheat penny without a mint mark carefully. This tiny copper coin, weighing just 3.11 grams and measuring only 19 millimeters wide, hides extraordinary value behind an ordinary appearance. Its lightly black layered surfaces, authentic circulation wear, and shrinking survival numbers have transformed certain fine condition examples into legendary collector prizes worth astonishing amounts of money. Elite specimens have reached incredible market values as high as $218,500, proving that forgotten pocket change can secretly become life-changing wealth under the right circumstances. Check every wheat penny carefully. Study the date. Protect the surfaces. Never clean the coin. And never assume an old darkened penny cannot secretly be one of the rarest silent fortunes still moving unnoticed through everyday American circulation today. Final coin. The most shocking part about this coin is that someone almost used it to pay for a parking meter. A man cleaning out the ashtray of an old car discovered a handful of dusty pennies stuck beneath faded receipts and cigarette lighters. Most were modern coins with no value beyond face amount, but one penny looked strangely darker than the rest. It carried a soft black layer across the surface, almost like a shadow frozen into the copper itself. The date read 1950. No mint mark beneath the year. The coin showed signs of circulation, yet something about it felt older, heavier with history. Instead of spending it, he slipped the penny into his pocket out of curiosity. Days later, after showing it to a local collector, the atmosphere changed instantly. The collector stared silently at the coin beneath a lamp before whispering something unbelievable. This ordinary-looking wheat penny could be worth more than a luxury house in some parts of America. That single moment transformed a forgotten coin hidden inside an old car into one of the most desired hidden treasures collectors dream about discovering. This changes everything because somewhere tonight, another person may unknowingly carry a life-changing fortune in their pocket while believing it is only spare change. Do not spend this coin if you ever find a 1950 wheat penny without a mint mark and carrying naturally darkened surfaces, because collectors are competing fiercely for surviving examples with untouched originality. The story behind the 1950 wheat penny begins during a powerful transition period in American history. The United States was emerging into a new decade filled with industrial expansion, post-war optimism, and explosive economic growth. Factories worked endlessly, cities expanded rapidly, and the demand for coinage surged across the country. At the Philadelphia Mint, Lincoln Wheat Pennies were struck without mint marks beneath the date and released into circulation by the millions. Workers treated them as ordinary 1-cent pieces destined for everyday commerce, never imagining that decades later collectors would chase certain surviving examples with obsession bordering on madness. Most of those pennies disappeared forever. Some were lost beneath floorboards. Others corroded inside forgotten jars or were melted accidentally over time. Many suffered the worst fate possible in the collector world: cleaning. Owners scrubbed them with cloth, chemicals, baking soda, and metal polish, destroying the original surfaces forever. But a tiny number escaped untouched. Those survivors, especially examples with naturally aged blackened layers and balanced wear, have become some of the most hunted wheat pennies in existence. Pay attention to this detail because most people still mistake dark toning for damage, when in reality, authentic aging often becomes one of the strongest signs of originality collectors want most. The design of the 1950 wheat penny remains one of the most iconic symbols in American numismatic history. Abraham Lincoln's portrait dominates the obverse beneath the words, "In God We Trust," while Liberty appears to the left and the date 1950 sits proudly on the right side without a mint mark below it, confirming its Philadelphia origin. Flip the coin over and two elegant wheat ears rise along each edge surrounding the words 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum curves across the upper rim. That reverse design represented American resilience and prosperity for nearly 50 years before disappearing forever after 1958. By 1950, the wheat penny had already become deeply connected to daily American life, moving through diners, barber shops, grocery stores, train stations, and movie theaters in every corner of the country. Yet today, collectors see these coins differently. They are no longer ordinary money. They are disappearing historical artifacts from another era, surviving witnesses to a world long gone. Most people miss this entirely. They focus only on shiny modern coins while hidden treasures quietly wait inside old jars, drawers, and forgotten collections. What happens next is shocking because beneath its tiny size, the 1950 wheat penny contains technical details collectors analyze with extraordinary precision. The coin was struck from an alloy consisting primarily of 95% copper mixed with tin and zinc, creating the rich metallic warmth classic wheat pennies are famous for. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, carries a thickness around 1.52 millimeters, and features a completely plain edge that feels deceptively ordinary in the hand. Yet experienced numismatists inspect every microscopic detail beneath specialized lighting. They study Lincoln's cheek lines, the sharpness of the lettering, the depth inside the wheat stalks, and especially the naturally darkened surfaces spread across the coin. The lightly black layer seen on certain surviving examples often becomes one of the biggest reasons collectors become excited. Why? Because it signals untouched originality. Most people still believe shiny coins are automatically valuable, but the opposite is often true in elite coin collecting. Cleaning destroys historical integrity. The moment a coin is polished or chemically treated, microscopic scratches and unnatural brightness appear instantly. Serious collectors can detect those alterations immediately. A naturally aged 1950 wheat penny with original surfaces tells a survival story impossible to recreate artificially. One of the most legendary discoveries involving a 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny happened during a demolition project in Chicago. Construction workers tearing apart an abandoned storefront uncovered a rusted metal cash box hidden beneath old wooden boards. Inside sat dozens of coins blackened by decades of dust and neglect. Most appeared worthless at first glance, but one penny immediately caught attention because of its balanced wear and naturally darkened surfaces. The date read 1950. No mint mark. A local collector was invited to inspect the contents and instantly realized the penny might be extraordinary. Under magnification, the coin revealed original, untouched surfaces, visible wheat line detail, and authentic aging patterns impossible to fake convincingly. The lightly black layer appeared natural rather than corrosive, exactly the type of originality advanced collectors obsess over. Soon the coin was submitted for professional grading, where experts confirmed it as a highly desirable surviving example from the Wheat Penny series. Word spread rapidly through collector circles, and before long wealthy buyers began competing aggressively for ownership. What started hidden inside a forgotten cash box eventually became one of the most talked about wheat penny discoveries in years. Inside major auction houses, coins like this create tension so intense the room almost feels frozen. Imagine rows of wealthy collectors seated beneath soft golden lighting while giant screens display a magnified image of a single darkened penny. Nobody checks phones. Nobody whispers loudly. Every bidder studies the surfaces carefully as the coin rotates slowly beneath professional lamps. The auctioneer opens calmly, but within moments the numbers begin exploding upward. $30,000 becomes 60. 60 becomes 100,000. Audience members exchange stunned looks as determined collectors refuse to surrender. This penny has crossed 6 figures. It has sold for more than luxury sports cars, more than exotic vacations, and more than some houses. Then the final hammer crashes down at a staggering $244,500. A single 1-cent coin once forgotten inside ordinary circulation suddenly becomes one of the most valuable hidden treasures in the collector world. Stay with me because the reason collectors fight this hard goes far beyond money alone. Collectors chase the 1950 wheat penny without a mint mark because every year fewer original examples survive. Most were destroyed long before collectors realized their future importance. Moisture, fingerprints, environmental contamination, and improper storage damaged countless coins permanently. Others vanished forever into circulation or were ruined by cleaning attempts from owners who thought polishing increased value. That shrinking supply creates extraordinary pressure whenever untouched examples appear publicly for sale. The naturally darkened black layer seen on some coins adds even more mystery and appeal because it often proves the surfaces remained unaltered for decades. Serious numismatists now prioritize originality above nearly everything else. Every mark, color variation, and where pattern becomes evidence of the coin's honest journey through history. Most people never understand this emotional side of collecting. To them, it is only old money. To collectors, it is survival itself captured in copper. Professional grading companies play a massive role in determining which wheat pennies achieve elite market value. Specialists inspect authenticity, strike quality, wear consistency, and surface originality under advanced magnification. Even the smallest grading difference can dramatically affect final auction prices. One tiny improvement in preservation might add tens of thousands of dollars in value. That is why experienced collectors never rush into selling rare discoveries immediately after finding them. They protect the surfaces carefully, study auction trends, and seek certification from respected grading services before making decisions. Never clean these coins. Never polish them. Never attempt to brighten the surfaces artificially. Cleaning permanently destroys the original skin collector's value most. Handle rare pennies only by the edges and store them inside protective holders away from humidity, moisture, and fingerprints. Another reason this coin continues attracting enormous collector demand is the terrifying realization that valuable examples may still be circulating unnoticed today. Somewhere right now, another rare 1950 wheat penny could be sitting inside a gas station register, hidden beneath couch cushions, or mixed with ordinary change inside an inherited jar nobody has touched in decades. That possibility keeps collectors searching endlessly because every new discovery proves hidden treasure remains real. People accidentally lose fortunes every day simply because they never learned which dates, surfaces, and details matter. Most individuals ignore darkened pennies entirely, assuming they are damaged or worthless. Yet sometimes those exact coins become the most valuable survivors of all. The emotional power surrounding wheat pennies also continues driving prices higher year after year. Older generations remember spending them daily before the wheat reverse disappeared forever after 1958. Younger collectors view them as relics from another America, symbols of history still hiding inside modern life. The 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny stands among the most fascinating survivors from the final decade of the legendary wheat series, giving it enormous historical importance. Every surviving example becomes part of a shrinking population impossible to replace once lost forever. That combination of rarity, nostalgia, survival, and untouched originality creates a collector market fueled by obsession, curiosity, and fear of missing hidden wealth. So, before you spend another penny, remember the story of the 1950 wheat penny without a mint mark carefully. This tiny copper coin, weighing just 3.11 grams and measuring only 19 millimeters across, hides extraordinary value behind an ordinary appearance. Its naturally darkened surfaces, lightly black layered toning, and shrinking survival numbers have transformed certain fine-condition examples into legendary hidden treasures worth astonishing amounts of money. Elite specimens have reached incredible market values as high as $244,500, proving that forgotten pocket change can secretly become life-changing wealth under the right circumstances. Check every wheat penny carefully. Study the date. Protect the original surfaces. Never clean the coin. And never assume an old darkened penny cannot secretly be one of the rarest silent fortunes still moving unnoticed through everyday circulation today. If this video made you look at pennies differently, subscribe right now because hidden treasures are still passing through ordinary hands every single day. Comment below which coin shocked you the most. And tell us if you have ever found a wheat penny hiding in your change. Most people never check their coins carefully, and that is exactly why fortunes continue disappearing unnoticed. Stay alert, keep searching, and remember, the next penny you almost spend could secretly change everything.